Okay, I'll get started with just my intro spiel, and then anyone else who comes in can catch up. So I'm Jessica. I'm one of the co-founders of Part3. Before Part3, I worked for a general contractor and then for a few architects. So today we're talking about field reports. I've been on the receiving end of field reports, and I've also been the one who's been creating them. So today we'll talk about how Part3 is used on mobile devices. So tablets, phones, and then of course we're still available on desktop, and we're going to cover streamlining site reports. The Part3 site report feature has a lot of different functionalities, so I'll make sure that we cover all of that today. And of course, how you can use Part3 in other ways on the field, keeping the whole team together and on the same page. Make sure you drop your questions in the Q&A along the way, and I'll save some time at the end so that we can get to those. So first of all, let's talk about what a site report looks like if you're creating them without an app and maybe the old school way, for lack of a better term. It might look like going to a site with a phone or a camera, maybe and getting back to the office, downloading all of your pictures on your server, and then getting into Word or Excel. Working in Word and Excel when you're creating a site report can be very frustrating. So you're updating all of your comments, but bringing your pictures in based on the size of them, trying to format, it's a pretty frustrating process. And then once you're ready with that and you finish it, you're PDFing it and you're sending an email to everybody. This takes days sometimes. It takes days because it's frustrating, and it takes days because eventually you need to get to it when you get back from site. And as we know, there's always a million things to do when you're a CA or you're an architect or an engineer. So Part3 Field Reports, again, we're a progressive web app, so you can save us from your browser on any device to your home screen. You're not going to find us in the App Store, and that's just because we're constantly making updates and improving Part3 for you. When you're using Part3 on site, tablet or mobile, you're using it, you're creating your report, and you're issuing it before you leave site. The minute you hit distribute, we're converting it to a PDF and we're sending it to everyone on your list. This takes hours, and that's what we hoped when we created Part3 and we're doing field report feature. And it's happening, which is awesome. So 60% of our users create and issue their field reports the exact same day. So this means that they're going to site, they're making the reports, they're formatting them, and they're sending them out, which is awesome. We have 75% of users are creating the reports and issuing them within 24 hours. This is really great. As one of the co-founders of Part3, it makes me super happy that people aren't going through this frustrating process that I went through for years. So we're going to go into a demo now. I want to show you everything that we have in Part3 in terms of functionality, how to create your reports, all the different features that we have, cloning them, and all the different benefits that we have in Part3 and what it really looks like for you when you're creating reports. So now I'm in Part3. I can see here, this is what my project looks like when I've landed in Part3. We have our reports tab on the left-hand side here. And I'll show you what it looks like to create a report from scratch, and then I'll go into my report that has some context and a bit more information. So first, when you're in Part3 and you're creating a report, you're just going to click this plus report button. This is all the information that you're going to see on your cover page. You have the title of your report, so I'll just say here, this is my condo project. This report number will be automatically generated for you, and this happens when you clone your reports as well. The review date, the time you went to site, and of course you can mark the time that you left site if you want, if that's something that you normally do. Your weather conditions, so it's summer, it's nice and sunny. Your general contractor, we already know that from your team page. So whoever you have as your company that you've added as your GC, we're pulling that in for you automatically. And same with your building permit numbers. This information is entered at your project settings level, and it's important to reference your building permit numbers if you're sending this final report to a building inspector or authority having jurisdiction, and they want to be able to compare this to the permit. This observations area is just meant for any generic summary of your site visit. It's completely optional. If you don't follow that process, you just want to keep all the context and information within the body of your report, you can skip this step. And then we have disclaimers. So you're just picking from your company standard. That means that every time you create your report, You don't have to worry that you need to find your disclaimer. What are we using now? This is all just from your organizational settings. So this is what you use every time you're creating your report, and then just click Create Report. Again, all this information is on the right-hand side here. You can come back and edit it anytime you need to. Now you're going to create your report. We have this layout option if your firm has set a company standard. So for example, if your reports will always be, general site conditions, mechanical, electrical, structural, and those are all broken out like that, you can follow that format, or you can create your report because every project's different. Maybe you have your own structure. So I'll go through that route here, which is just adding a section. So I'll say this is Tower 1 interior, and I'm going to add my section. Maybe now I want to figure out how I'm going to format my report. So I'm going to add my section so that I'm creating my structure. And I can keep going and get my format set up. So normally doing this is for your first report, because then after that, you just keep cloning it and you can go through that exercise. All this information will already be set for you. Now I've created my sections. They act as the parent really. And now I'm adding my items. And now I can go through here and maybe I want to say this is fire rated shafts. These 4 different fields here are completely optional. You don't have to enter them, you can leave them, but it's really beneficial later on, and I'll show you why when we get to the item view. So I'll say this one is related to mechanical. It's on level 1 and follow-up is required. So again, you could leave your item status blank if you want. These are the 4 different options that we have in part 3. And then I'll select my priority as well. So I'll say shafts are almost complete, inspection required, fire stopping missing. And now I'm going to go through and add my pictures. So if you're on your mobile device, all you're doing is taking a camera or taking a picture with your camera, or you can select from your library. But here I'm on desktop, so I'll just show you what that looks like. So these are the 4 pictures that I want to add for this item. We have these 6 dots here. You can drag and drop your pictures in whatever order you want. So maybe I wanted this one to be at the end here. I can assign someone. So because follow-up's required, maybe I want to assign it to my general contractor and make sure that they are flagged in this item and they know that it needs their attention. And then I'm going to add this item. So now I can see here, I've added the item to my report. I can click it here, see all the pictures that I uploaded and my comments. If I need to come back and edit it, I can do that here. If I need to delete it, I can do that. Don't worry, we'll always ask you, are you sure you want to delete it? And you can't delete sections if they have items. So we kind of block you from accidentally making those mistakes if you hit it accidentally. And then more importantly here, we have a bunch of different features. So we can annotate, markup, and add a little comment. So for example, here on this picture, it's pretty generic. Maybe I want to really highlight why I took this picture. So here, fire stopping is missing. This needs to be done before the shaft is closed. So I'll say fire stopping to be completed. And I'm going to save that. And now this is updated. Once I go into my report and it's PDF'd, I can decide how big I want this picture to be, and I can annotate it as much as I want. You can always delete your annotations, come back and revise them. So now I've kind of showed you the creation, which is the section creation, how you add your items. And now I'm going to go into a report that has a bit more information just so that we can see what this looks like. This is how you save your layout as well. So if I wanted to say this is how I'm always going to break out my report, or I wanted to save this layout for any condo projects we're doing, I could save that layout. This is the structure, and I could save that here saying condo project template, and then save that. If you pull that in, you can always modify it, but if that's your company standard, you can do that as well. So now I'll jump into a report that has more information populated, and I'll dive into a few other features that we have in part 3. Going back to my page here, I can see this report that I have that I created before. And I can see all the information on this right-hand side here. So again, coming back, I can edit all the information on my cover page if I need to. We have a table of contents that you can use. If you don't want it, you can just toggle it off. You can add attendees. So maybe I walk the site with my GC and I want to document that we walked the site together. And then as well, I can see if I worked on this site, report with someone else. I can say that both of us did this, and I can add the distribution list as well. So this can be auto-populated for you in part 3. And then of course, when you clone your reports, we're just carrying all of this over. So diving into what this actually looks like as a populated report, I can see all my different items under here. Again, I can click in and show any of the information that I need to. So for example, here I marked up this picture because I thought that, they didn't recognize that the latest drawing was issued that had this as a mechanical shaft and not just pipe sleeves. So this is a deficiency. I need them to correct this. I can go through and update any of the statuses, come back and revise my status here in terms of editing the content or delete it. This is edit mode. So this is where you're creating your items and your sections. The next thing that we have here is layout mode, and that's where you're really deciding what you want your report to look like. Clicking into layout mode here gives you a different view. I can see my cover page here. So if I wanted to see what my actual cover page is going to look like in part 3, when it's converted to a PDF, this is what I'll see. All this information, again, at the top about the project number, the permits, any of the information I entered about the date, the time, the weather. This is my company disclaimer and my observations and my distribution list. This is everything that looks like related to this section on the right-hand side here. I've toggled off the table of contents. If I toggled it on, I could see here, I'm referencing the different sections. And now I'm getting into what this looks like for my actual layout when I convert it to a PDF. I'll see here the status on the right-hand side, and we show different colors for different statuses. So hopefully it jumps out at people when they're actually looking at the report. And you can scroll down here. There's no picture here. It's for record only. This one here, I really want to highlight what I marked up. I want the GC or whoever's reading this report to notice what I've said. Right now here, when you click into it, you can see it has this blue highlight, and that is letting me know that I'm modifying the layout of this report area. So here at the bottom, we have images per row, the height, and the quality. I'm going to say I only want one image per row, and I'm going to optimize this because I really want the GC and whoever's reading this report to see the 3 sleeves that I'm talking about and know that this is the area that requires their attention. Sometimes you take a big picture, you annotate it, but when people get it, if it's still that old school way of printing it out, maybe even black and white, they're not going to see it and it might not be really clear for them. So we just want you to have that option to make it as clear as possible and pick how you want the report to be laid out. You can go through and do that for any of your items and sections. For example, down here, again, I want to talk about this. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to click it. And I want to make this big as well because I'm not happy. This is a deficiency and it really needs to be addressed. You just want to put it in their face, make sure that they know what you're talking about. So you can come through here, always make sure that you're using the layout option. And this works on mobile too. So obviously, if you're on site, you're adding your sections, you're adding your items, but you want to figure out what your report's actually going to look like in PDF before you issue it. So you can always come in here, do that. One other thing to note here is that maybe I wanted to separate this out. Maybe I'm getting towards the end of the project and I want to make a completely separate item for deficiencies. So I'll drag that down here. Now I'm just going to drag and drop every deficiency that I made so that it's in one area. Everyone can see the deficiencies that I'm talking about. We're going to renumber this for you. If maybe I wanted to move this up to the top of my report, now that's 15.1. So the drag and drop functionality auto renumbers for you. You don't have to do that. Again, a big benefit compared to Word, where that is actually a nightmare. You might even avoid doing that altogether just because of how frustrating it is. Now I've decided that that's what I want it to look like, and I'm ready to distribute my report. If I wanted to generate what the PDF looks like, I could do that and then download it if you really want a good look at what your report's going to look like. But I'm ready to distribute it. This is my final review for me of what my cover page is, who the report's going to, and I can add a distribution message as well. So I can say, see report from my last site visit, and then I can distribute that. So this is going to everyone on my distribution list, one combined PDF that's named properly. It's not a bunch of random characters. It will say your project name and the title of your report. This is being sent out to everybody on the team. And then of course, next time you're going to cite, I'm just going to clone this report. But let's say maybe I missed something. I missed a deficiency or I missed a comment. I can reopen the latest report, or I can just distribute it again. So I don't need to do that, but now I'm going to clone it. I can pick what statuses that I want to clone. Maybe I don't want to clone any closed items because they're closed, they're in the background. If you close an item in part 3, you're not going to lose that item. We will always track it for you. It's not gone forever. And then you can decide if you want to include any attachments. And those are attachments that are added at the bottom of your report. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to clone this entire report. I don't want to leave anything off. Now this has become report 16. I can see all of these item numbers stayed the same because I created them on report number 15. And in that report, they were in section 1, and it was item number 1 in that report. We keep all that numbering so that if later on down the road, a few months from now, someone says, oh, I didn't finish that deficiency and now I can't do it because we closed up the wall. Well, I told you 4 months ago, and I noted it 4 months ago, that this was an item that had to be addressed and you didn't get around to it. So you might have to open up the wall. This is just a good way to track the progress and make sure that everyone knows what report it came up on. And when you add in your item, so if I add an item here, I'm adding it under deficiencies. So I'll just put this one as a test. I'm going to say it's a deficiency. It's related to architectural, and it's on the lower level. I can add my photos here. Again, if you're on your phone, you can just come through and take a picture from your actual camera or pick from your library, and I'll add these pictures. This item was added as 16 because it was created on report number 16, and it's in section 1, and it's the first new item in that area. If you wanted to drag and drop, again, I'm going to move my deficiency to the bottom of the report. I can do that. We have a lot of different functionality in here. One other thing that I want to talk about, when I mentioned that if you close an item, we won't delete it for you. It still stays in the history of part 3. If I go back to reports here, I can see this items tab. This is where all of my items that I've created on any report will live, whether or not they've been deleted or closed. And the benefit here is that your GC, any of the subcontractors that you invite into part 3, can come and look at this anytime. This is really beneficial for them because they can filter it. Maybe they just want to see how many deficiencies are there on the project. Now they can come in here, they can click it, and they get a full view of what reports it was listed on. They can see the pictures, they can see the status, they can see it's still open, and it's a high priority. This really helps people if they just want to narrow down what is actually in their court. I remember when I was working for a general contractor, and I would have a sub-trade approach my desk, and they're like, I just need to know what is applicable to me. So I print them a copy, highlight what their items are, and give them a paper copy. I really hope that's not how the world functions now. But that's what it was like when I was in the field. So coming in here, they can filter on anything. Again, if they just want to see, I only want to see, what's architectural or mechanical, I'm going to filter that. I can go through all of those items. You can also export this. If I selected all these, I could export it as an Excel. We have a few different options because we want to make it accessible to everybody. And digging through a lot of different reports to figure out where can I find this item is not easy, especially when you get towards the end of a project, you might have 25 reports. So this is super helpful. So this is where we're at right now in terms of field reports, which is really exciting. We have lots of stuff to come. As a little sneak preview, we have preview mode that's coming. Instead of layout mode, this will be replaced by preview. And that just means that you're going to see your report before you even leave site, exactly what it looks like. You can organize, if you want your items pushed up to this page or you want everything pushed down. And we're going to let you do whatever you want in terms of your layout. Right now, we try and optimize, minimize how much white space you get in part 3. Everyone wants something different. Everyone should be able to customize what their report looks like. So that's what preview mode is going to let you do. So that's part 3. Going back into our field report, let's talk about how you can use Part3 on site. So the majority of site offices have screens. Again, when I was working for a general contractor, I was the coordinator that had to, print the copies, cut it out, tape it to the plans, and highlight it in red. That was not reliable, and it's not a good way of working. So I think most GCs and most field site offices these days have screens, which is great. On site, most of the trades have their own drawings, if it's in a job box like this one here, or it's in their own makeshift site office that they have. A lot of times those trades are kind of like a bit behind, and there's a disconnect between what's issued, what they receive from their office, and what's on site. I think one of the biggest things that we hear a lot from people, and that really everyone has experienced at some point, is that people are not working off of the latest drawings. This is really difficult. It leads to problems all the time. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. You go to site, the wall's in the wrong spot, it's the wrong type of wall, a door is missing, whatever it is, it ultimately comes down to people not having access to the latest drawings. So I found this green one here, this job box with a screen. I thought it was super interesting. If you guys have ever seen this on site, drop a comment in the Q&A. I think it's a really good concept. I don't know how long it would be before that screen got broken or stolen, but I think it's really cool. So how do you use Part3, and how can it be your source of truth on site? That's ultimately what we're getting at here, is that there's so many different ways that people communicate, whether or not it's with a tablet, a phone, a screen, but you want everyone to be on the same page all the time. This way, mistakes don't happen and people aren't frustrated. A lot of time, if a trade has worked really hard to do their work, to ask them to tear it down and do it again is very frustrating. And who's eating the cost of that? So ultimately, everyone being on the same page benefits everybody. You can invite the entire project team into Part3. Your trades can check their shop drawings. As an architect, you're sending everything to the GC, but ultimately the success of the project is beneficial to everyone. So a trade can come in here, look at their shop drawings, filter in Part3. I only want to see what shop drawings pertain to me. I want to see the reviewed version. You can, as a GC, you can walk on site. You can ask an RFI while you're on site, take a picture, attach it, just keep everything in the latest time. And then you can even, as an architect or an engineer, you can answer your RFIs on site. If you're walking, you can see, take a picture. This is my answer to that. I can mark it up in Part3, add an annotation or a comment, and then send my response back. It's really important to keep all this information latest and greatest. So again, that's the goal of Part3. We're issuing instructions and changes, and you always want to make sure that those get to the people that they're supposed to get to. Someone's on vacation or something like that, and the next person's taking over, anyone can come into Part3. It's really important, and that's kind of the reason behind why we created Part3, is that the disconnect between site and people working efficiently is really important. So that's basically how you can use Part3 in the field, what field reports look like in Part3 when you're creating them, when you're issuing them. I think now I'll pause and we'll go over to some questions if anyone has one. Going through, by the way, drop any ideas that you have for webinars. We're getting into our webinar series now. This is our 4th one. So drop your ideas. The best idea will get a $50 gift card for a place of their choice. And we just want to make sure that we're, talking about things that people want to hear about. There's no point in spending half an hour, 45 minutes talking to someone that's not their interest. So anyways, I'll pass it over to Jess, and you can let us know if we have any questions. Other Jess, that's not confusing.
Yeah, we made it easy. Okay, we've got a question here, and I do see a hand raised. If you like, you can click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to put your question in there, so make sure we get to it, or I will try to turn off your mic. This is our first time doing this, so be patient with us. Okay, the first question we have here is there a mic recording option on mobile devices for infilling the description comments of the report item in lieu of typing it out on a mobile device?
Yeah, most phones these days, you have that little microphone in the text area. You can use the text or the dictate to text. I find that super helpful. I suppose if you were standing beside someone that was chipping concrete or, doing something super loud, it may not work that well. But yeah, the dictate to text, we get feedback from a lot of people that it's super helpful, especially on like deficiency walkthroughs or, interior work that you're marking up. Just depends on how loud it is. But I agree, it's super beneficial and probably really helpful in the colder months when you don't want to have your hands out typing for ages.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question here is, may have missed it, but can you duplicate a previous field report and modify it as needed? It seems straightforward enough to create a new one from a template as well.
Yeah, definitely. So going in here, I'll just issue this one so I can talk about that. So I'll send out this report. This is the report that I created. It's report number 16. So clicking the clone button is the next time I go to site 2 weeks later, I'm just going to clone it and carry over all the items that I want to. Once I've carried those over, I can go in and modify those items. So I'll clone this one. I'm going to carry everything over, and this becomes report number 17, but I've brought in all of my previous items. Let's say this one was corrected. I'm going to go in here and say that this is for record only now. I can delete this and say that it was resolved, or I can add a note on top of it, whatever you want to do and format your reports. So I can say this one's resolved, lab opening was created, and then I can save that. I can also remove my pictures. Maybe I want to add a picture this time of the actual slab opening so that I can document that it was created. So I could add a new photo and I could remove the assignee because this person has already fixed it. And then I can save it. Now I have this record. I can drag it out of deficiencies or I can delete it. So you can really do whatever you want on that cloning version. Again, we'll always carry over the numbers for you so that you can see where it originated and when it was closed. If I went in here and closed this item, I would see on my item view page that it's been closed. I would see the date that it's closed as well. So you could track how long it took to resolve that item.
Awesome. I'm going to answer the next one. We had someone who was late to join, asked if this will be recorded, and yes, it will be recorded, or it is being recorded, and we will be emailing that out to anyone who signed up as well. So that will also be available on our website. Next question here is there a way to save a report layout for already posted or issued reports?
So if the report has already been distributed, when you go back in, again, you have the option to reopen the latest issued report. But when this one is distributed, I'll go into a different issued area on my actual reports page. So if I go in here, that one's sent. If I wanted to save the layout, I would reopen it, but you can't save layouts from issued reports, unfortunately.
Thank you. In observations, can you add references to the contract documents like drawings and spec numbers?
Yeah, so right now what we have, if I reopen this one, obviously we only have the open text box area. If you wanted to upload an attachment of a drawing or something like that, you could do that. We're working on a file center feature, so you would be able to link or pull in any of the files in that area as well by using this attachment. So we don't have the ability to drag in a change or anything like that. One thing that I've done here, for example, is if I have my deficiencies and I've noted these, for example, canopies, I just wrote refer to this change order. And I could see that because when I was on site, I just went quickly to my log page and filtered and searched what change order did we talk about canopies. So going back and forth while you're on site is easy when you want to reference the change. We don't have the ability to like pull it in and provide that link, but that's a good idea.
And that might be related to the next one here. Is part 3 considering developing a function to track permit approvals, inspections, and sign-offs?
So I obviously from like authority having jurisdiction status, we don't have any plans for going like backwards into that step before construction, but with the file center, we'll have the ability for you to log all that information, like the permit submissions, acceptance, any of those things, but we don't have any like tracking mechanisms in place for that right now.
Okay, and then we have a question here. Can video files be uploaded?
Right now it's PDFs and JPEGs.
Great. We have a question here. I'm not sure if I understand this one, so you might have to ask it again if that's okay. Can you copy it to a new project, not clone it in the same project where it was created? That one I think is a little confusing. If you don't mind just repeating that question, we'll try and get that for you, or you can click that blue question mark in the corner if we don't get to it today.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if I had to interpret that question, it would be, if I created this report, could I bring it into another project instead of using a layout? If that's the case, no, we can't transfer reports between projects. It's only on that project.
Okay. Okay. Can a template be made so that the original layout structure is maintained, but the numbering is updated to the current review?
Okay, let me see if I can answer this question and make sure that I understand it correctly. So if I'm going in here and I'm using a template, so maybe if I want to say this is my standard layout, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to use that layout, and now I'm bringing it in here. If that's the first one, we're always going to pull that through for you. It happens at the beginning of the report. So if you've already have your report underway and you're cloning it, you can't change it to be a template option. So this will always come in as your numbers 1, 2, 3, whatever. And then that's when you clone it. So report number 1, clone it to number 2, clone it to number 3. So that's kind of how the template option works. I don't know if I answered that correctly, but like Jess said, if you have any other questions, you can always use this blue question mark in the bottom right corner and ask us. If you're like, no, that's not what I was asking.
We did get feedback that you did answer the last one correctly, so maybe we'll be on a roll. Awesome. Okay, we have a few more here. If we have linked our Part 3 to a contractor's Procore account, will the report be distributed directly to Procore, or will the contractor receive an email notification that the report has been distributed?
The contractor would receive an email notification with a link to that PDF. So it would take them right to the PDF so they can download it. Our Procore connection syncs for submittals and RFIs, but we don't have a connection in place to their field report area.
Awesome. Okay, can you default the section when adding items? Example, during a fire stop review, we would prefer not to have the select fire stop each time, just the first time. When moving over to envelope items, then we select the new section.
Yeah, so we've had that comment a couple times actually, and it's really interesting because people have also mentioned that they have like saved generic responses. So for example, maybe it was like, oh, this work's underway, or this is a deficiency, painting deficiency, make sure you follow up with that. So instead of typing all those things again, they would like to just have like a saved generic response from like their different template list. So I definitely understand not wanting to retype something and say fire stopping a million times. I think that's something that we should definitely look into and figure out how we can have those generic responses for people either saved at their organizational level or project level. If you have any feedback on that, because that's something that we've heard from a couple firms, drop us a link in this question mark area, because I'd be really interested to know like the use case for that and the different areas as well. So are you talking more about the description or in the comments area if I annotated a picture? Just give, if you don't mind, sharing some clarity on that, because I think one thing we do at Part 3 is always take feedback from people and then try and implement it. So we'd really love for you to tell us how you would actually see that be used in the field.
Awesome. Can details be assigned to specific contractors?
So right now, I assume like this is area. So for specific contractors, you can invite as many people into Part 3. So right now, if you only invited your general contractor, you're just going to see their names pop up. If you added all of your subcontractors into Part 3, you could select them as well. So we have a few different options there. It just depends on who you invite at your team's page. If you've actually invited those subcontractors or anyone else, their name and stuff just needs to be present on this team's page so that you can assign them to an item.
Awesome. For submittal AI, do you plan on giving an option to upload drawings along with standards?
For our submittal AI, we have the specification upload right now. We're working on the file center for drawing upload so that you will have this whole current drawing set on part 3, which will again be really helpful when you're doing your site reports. You can flip back and see what the current drawing is. So in terms of submittal assistant, those are the areas for submittal specifications and AI, and then our field report area, or our file center area, sorry, where we're going to add the drawings, but we don't have any AI plans in field reports right now. I don't know if that answers the question, but let me know.
Do we have the option to add a cover page for different engineering companies to the report?
Right now, the cover page is for the company that creates the report in part 3 and kind of who owns the license option of part 3. If anyone else, if there was an overlap, by the way, like it will always sync to the project. But right now we can't add a cover page for separate consultants. What you can do though is upload consultant reports. We're going to give you the option to save them in different folders. For example, if you wanted to just upload it as like a standard attachment for structural report that you received in April, you're going to be able to upload that. So right now you could do it by just creating a generic report and just saying this is structural report and it was report number 2. You can put the review date and time that they marked as well, and then just create that report and add the attachment. So you could go through that way as well if you just wanted to literally log the attachment and then say this is only for logging the structural report, and that'll help you keep everything in part 3.
Can you save a template with the sections and the items?
Right now we only save the sections. We find that the items are so specific per project and detailed, the way that we see people creating reports right now in part 3. We only add the sections. It's not to say we could never add the items. It's just right now it's only sections.
All right, and last 2 here is not a field reporting question, but does part 3 work with cost plus construction projects?
That's a good question. I have some experience with different, contract types. I won't say that I've heard from a lot of users cost plus, but having said that, all the different tools that we have in document types in part 3 and our project financials, we have tons of different contract types in part 3. So if that's something that you want to talk about and figure out, then you can definitely shoot us an email or at support@part3.io or ask us a question if you're not a part 3 customer. Yeah. I don't have a specific example of a customer that has a cost plus, but it's a good question.
Would our consultants that are part of the project team have access to these field reports so they can review and add comments before it's issued?
Consultants that aren't part of the project team. So in my scenario here, I'm with part 3, or I'm with Saddlebrook on this one. I could come back and anyone on my team can contribute to the report that I have open. We try to mimic the function that you would normally have in the office, is that anyone could go in and anyone could work on a report if you're from the same company. If it's an outside company, an outside consultant, they can't come in and contribute to reports. All they're going to see is your issued reports. So anyone that you've invited to the project always has access to the issued reports, but they can't contribute to open reports.
Thank you. All right, last question here is what is the cost of just the field reporting feature on part 3?
So the cost of just the field reporting feature we have on our website, I'll just show you if you ever want to come back and reference it. We have all of our pricing listed here, and we can go through the license. And this is a full platform, but if you ever wanted to figure out, maybe we just want to go through the site reporting feature, I believe it's $60 per user per month.
Yeah, I think
questions.
it depends on the team size, but definitely reach out either through support at part3.io. We also have hello at part3.io if that's easier to remember. For any people who maybe don't have part 3 yet and want to ask some more questions, you can definitely send it there. Or if you are a part 3 customer, you can use that blue question mark and our entire team gets it as well. So either way, keep the questions coming, your suggestions. If anyone has those webinar suggestions, we will still give away that gift card. So get those in any of those ways as well.
Yeah, you can come in, get a demo, anything you want like that. And as Jess said, like the pricing will work with you if you have a bigger team, pricing adjusts, and we can help you grow as well as you expand. Anyways, I think we're almost out of time. Thank you everyone for joining. We will send a recording of this if you wanted to pass it on to any of your teammates. And as Jess said, we'll have it on the website as well.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.